I can't believe how much is involved in this story. You've got the farming rights on the line, which is connected to food rights being on the line, even though they're not for food. You've got your property. I mean, they've come in here, they arrested 2 of the farmers because they said, well, can't we just feed them? Can't we just love them? Can't we just care for them until you guys set up? It's completely insane. They have no rights, but the bureaucrats think they're above the law to the point that they won't even let the farmers have the recourse of going through Supreme Court.
Oh, I'm sorry, is your ostrich all right?
Oh, yeah, Bessie, she's all right. Just a bit scared because of all the media attention. That and a touch of bird flu. Ah!
Don't you think it would be helpful to have a friend?
Next reporter, merci.
Oh, you're not going to answer, Minister?
Sydney Fizzard for Rebel News, en route to the Universal Ostrich Farms in British Columbia. I'm driving from Calgary, so it's been a bit of a drive. As you can see, I'm taking the ferry just to get there. There's 2 ferries atop what was supposed to be a 7-hour drive, but this is a story that matters. This is foundational to the way that Canada is set up in our government, in the bureaucracy, in the global order that we try to ascribe ourselves to, at least in terms of the government's desires. This Thursday, the Supreme Court will decide whether to hear an appeal made by the Universal Ostrich Farms, which seeks to stop the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's killing of all their ostriches. This critical story touches on every aspect of Canada's governance practices and morality. That's why in this report, I recap my previous visit to the farm where I interviewed Drea Humphrey of Rebel News, who has been reporting on everything happening on the ground in real time. We at Rebel News will be on the ground when the Supreme Court decides the fate of this farm, thanks to your support at SaveTheOstriches.com. This farm in BC raises ostriches which are largely studied for purposes of advancing science, notably natural immunity. These birds are not raised to be slaughtered like poultry. Instead, their value comes from long-term studying of said birds alive, and their eggs. In comes the Canadian Food Inspection Agency in December 2024 on an anonymous tip that some of the ostriches were sick. They used overly sensitive tests on 2 deceased birds to obtain a positive test for avian flu. As a consequence, without testing any of the remaining ostriches, the CFIA decided all of them must be killed. The CFIA has many powers at their disposal, from quarantining to isolation and disinfecting to testing and monitoring to mass culling, and so on. They decided, though, that the mass kill option was the only option they wanted to pursue, despite national and international pushback.
These farmers love their animals. Senior academics are begging for access to potential research on diseases. Canadians are traveling from all over across the country in outrage. This communication fiasco has been allowed to escalate into a crisis, and now tens of thousands of Canadians have raised their voices on the issue, wanting to know why. Why isn't the Liberal Agriculture Minister forcing the CFIA to properly retest these 400 ostriches? Why would the Liberal Health Minister want to throw away valuable potential medical research? The nation is watching and Canadians demand answers. Why won't you explain yourselves?
Remember that it's through the chair. I don't know that much about ostriches.
The CFIA referenced the stamping out policy by the World Organization for Animal Health, which Canada is a treaty member of. This policy was designed to stop highly contagious disease spread in animals before it could have national livestock or global trade impacts. We are internationally and domestically legally obliged through the Health of Animals Act and the World Trade Organization Agreement Implementation Act. The WOAH is funded by treaty nation members, alongside vaccine immunity promoting NGOs like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The CFIA has the ability to provide exemptions to the mass culling policy, such as was requested for these ostriches, but they decided they would rather just kill them all. A year after this sickness passed through the herd, the CFIA persists. They disagree with the animals being allowed to exist while having exposure to wildlife. They also refuse to do further testing of any kind. This is the same CFIA who arrested a small-time Alberta egg farmer for having too many eggs and buried chickens alive in the carcasses of their deceased brethren. Despite the CFIA's intentions, Universal Ostrich Farms brought this matter to court. The federal court ruled with the CFIA on the grounds they are a federal body established by Parliament and thus should not be interfered with. The Federal Court of Appeals sided with that ruling. The fully vaccinated Supreme Court of Canada is set to decide whether they'll hear an appeal from the farm on November 6th. If the Supreme Court refuses, the CFIA may proceed with the killings immediately. If they approve, then the matter will be brought before them in court. The Liberal Party Minister of Health, Marjorie Michel, could intervene as the minister responsible and in control of the CFIA, but has chosen to remain silent.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your U.S. counterpart, has written saying he thinks that there's some medical research value in these ostriches because they had avian flu, but then have recovered and are now immune. In fact, he's offered to do the research and even to pay for it. It seems to me that we need allies around Trump's cabinet table. And if you could throw him a bone and say, sure, Secretary Kennedy, you can study these birds, it's sort of no skin off Canada's nose. And don't you think it would be helpful to have an ally in Trump's cabinet when we're doing our trade negotiations?
Prochaine question, merci.
That's my question. Don't you think it would be helpful to have a friend?
Next reporter, merci.
Oh, you're not going to answer, Minister? Okay, I'll sit down. It's I guess it's question period, not answer period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to move to the questions on Zoom. Mark, over to you. Thank you.
The birds have been legally protected from death as this has moved through the courts, thanks to the stay orders requested by the farm's legal representation, lawyer Umar Sheikh. However, the CFIA was granted control of the farm and other lands, and are using their power to enforce RCMP engagement. They have seized lands and properties of locals, had around a half a dozen people arrested, and had a bird die of neglect under their control. They're a bloodthirsty gang of bureaucrats on a literal killing spree, granted seemingly unlimited power from the federal Liberal Party government, while the courts look the other way. We'll see on November 6th what the Supreme Court says. In the meantime, here's an on-the-ground look from my recent journey to the farm currently seized by the government, and interview with BC Bureau Chief Rebel News reporter Drea Humphrey. As you can see behind me, there is the designated kill zone for these ostriches, the ones that the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, is trying to murder. The question remains, why did they set up a double perimeter with a police enforcement around it with fog lights that get set up at night to prevent people from coming onto the property? On the opposite side of the property, where everyone is attending those supporting the ostrich farm, why are they continuing to attempt this in the first place? Why is it that there's got to be a cull on these birds?
There doesn't have to be a cull on these birds. That's the problem. The birds that are here have never even been tested for the avian flu. They're over 260 days healthy and asymptomatic since a sickness passed through the herd late last year.
The CFIA, they were the first ones on the property with their full, pandemic attire, as it were.
Day one, they didn't even wear it. I think they watched themselves on the news and went, oh, shoot, we forgot to act like these birds are sick. When that sickness passed, there were some that passed away. They were the younger birds that had weaker immune systems. And the farmers believe that also, and scientists, by the way, support their belief that these birds that are older likely had the avian flu already as well. And also, these are prehistoric creatures, and their eggs are full of antibodies, which is exactly what this farm was actually doing since 2020, using their eggs and the antibodies to further viral research for therapeutics to fight COVID-19. And so now they're saying, why not save them so that they can actually find a solution for actually fighting the avian flu without mass culling, which happens in British Columbia more than any other province in the country.
So let's back up to that point there. There was an avian flu that came through here last year. Some of these birds got sick. Much like any flock of birds on the planet, sometimes they get sick, sometimes a couple of them don't make it. That is Mother Nature for you. Why is it specifically that they need to be culled in the government's eyes?
They have a stamping out policy, and this is really what the farmers here at Universal Ostrich Farm are pushing against. And that stamping out policy, it guides them to just mass kill. Now, you have to understand that ostriches are not chicken. These are not poultry, and viruses do not pass through a herd like this the same way that they do with chickens. 69 of them died, the younger ones, which is less than 15% of the herd, which is also supposed to put these birds in a different category. I forget the exact terms. What I'm getting at here is, although the CFIA continues to say our reasoning for why these birds should still die, regardless of if they're healthy or not today, and why they refuse to retest, is because they just go to the policy. It's policy over sanity. But they are also superseding the policy a little bit in the fact that it was less than 15% and in the range of there being no other farm animals within a certain range here. So they point to the WHO, but then they're also going further, and they're bureaucrats. They're not farmers. They're not veterinarians making these decisions, and they're not scientists making these decisions either.
Here where I'm standing is the main action point for the demonstrations. There are the ostriches. To my left is where the RCMP have stationed themselves behind a police line. They are there setting up and holding this perimeter for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. There was a temporary pause, so the birds were going to be safe for a little while, but the CFIA got control of the farm. They're locking out veterinarians from taking care of those birds and ostrich experts. They're refusing any help that these birds might get. And what have they done instead? They decided to feed them some, I'm going to call it suspicious food. And they have not only this, dinky little police line, they've also set up a big blue fence, as you can see here. And that was put in after they decided that they were going to try and get a bunch of hay bales to hide the birds so that they could do a kill pen. Yeah, literally. Now, that burned down spontaneously. Can't say I'm upset, but it's unfortunate.
It's still there, though. Let me talk about that for a second, because this is also insane. I mean, I don't know why the CFIA is so hell-bent on what they're doing, but they are making so many missteps, and this farm's not going to let it go whether their birds live or die. With the hay bales you're talking about, yes, there was a suspicious fire. We were here 4 a.m, showing you that. There were 2 more fires after that, and it wasn't suspicious. It was most likely just the hay was combusting because the CFIA wasn't dismantling it. They kept it up, and they put this whole area, the animals, the farmers, and this whole region at risk for wildfires, which aren't always wild, as I'm saying. So that is another form of negligence, in my opinion.
In totality, them taking control of the farm, taking control of the ostriches is almost their way of creating the reality that they were trying to get in the first place. Like, under their control, we see already 1 ostrich has died. People are mentioning how these birds look like they've been drugged. They don't look as healthy or active, all following the CFIA's takeover. So being here on the ground for an extended period of time, is that a legitimate thing? Do these birds, are they acting different?
Absolutely. The farmers are concerned that something's in the food, and they are not being crazy. I see it. Everybody who's seen these birds before see that they are way less active. I've seen them play with balls before. I saw them mating nonstop. We showed you guys that as well. They look depressed. They look sad. They look slow. I think it's a combo of things. Is it something in the food? I don't know. Is it just neglect? Like, they're not seeing their farmers. They're so confused at what's going on. The smoke could have played an issue. They were under smoke for a few days, and they're separated from each other more. So they actually really like people, and they've come to really love people, as all the spectators would come. So it used to be, if anybody stood there, you would see like 60, 80. Now you're lucky if you see 2, and they're all separated from each other. It's really inhumane. It's disgusting. And among all of the many questions is, where are the animal humane societies on this issue? We've also covered them pleading with them. Can you care for the hen? Can you tell us if it's okay? Can you let us go in? We know how to care for her. Can you give them these electrolytes? She's probably dehydrated.
We got the footage, we have guys. The footage. It's gross. She's dying alone. We would have never done that. Our birds don't die alone. They're loved by us. They're cared. She's alone, laying there, dying right there. We can't touch her. We can't be with her. They're not with her. They know she's dying.
Leaked footage snuck over there after the CFIA tried to snuff out your eyes. They literally, after the farm got their stay relief from the Supreme Court pausing the call, they blocked their cameras so that the world can't see and the farmers couldn't see. And somebody got a shot of that neglected hen dying on her own. It's really disgusting. Her name is Spirit. And so Dave got the news, as we all did, as we published today, that Spirit died, but only after it was exposed that she was being neglected in the CFIA's care. So you're right. He said she's a pet when she broke down. And he said she's more than a pet because of the antibodies as well.
To emphasize the point of there being no reason, RFK actually put out offers to Canada inviting the states to take these ostriches away from Canada, but the Canadian government said, no, we'd rather kill them.
This is another layer of the hypocrisy and the why. So Secretary of Health, RFK Jr., like you're talking about, head of Medicare, Dr. Oz, the FDA and the NIH have all gone to bat for these birds, saying, hey, there is a research opportunity. These vaccines we're relying on, like Moderna, which is trying to do the mRNA vaccine, they're leaky. We don't like this mass culling thing because they've had to kill a lot of animals too. We want to find a better way, and they want to go into therapeutics, which is exactly what this flock is lined up for. So in this whole elbows up, Mark Carney, Canada, it's all a wash. Everybody can see that when you have the Americans say, hey, let's do this trade deal. We'll pay for the science, we'll test the birds at our own expense, and you guys just get to simply win. That could have been huge, or can be, if there is some shift for British Columbia and Canada. It could literally ease trade tensions between our biggest trade partner.
Reminds me of, unfortunately, the state of Canada, which is a bird gets sick, we got to kill the whole flock. You don't feel that well? Maybe you should try assisted suicide. So that's what the CFIA said. They said that these birds got to get killed. The farmers here are obviously putting up a good fight. Why haven't they been culled yet?
So you said it right there. I've interviewed these farmers, and something they've said a couple of times, and they've hit it on the nail, is that the CFIA has messed with the wrong farm here.
This organization that has been operating for decades with no accountability, killing animals, are a killing machine. They are not protecting life. They're not protecting our livelihoods. They don't care. And now we need to see that agency, that organization be dismantled. It has been made clear.
They have not given up the fight, because you remember when the CFIA comes to these farms, over hundreds of them in British Columbia alone, culling 9 million birds since 2022, they also dangle a price for each bird. And so that plays into why you don't always hear about this. There's even non-disclosures involved. So they've come to the wrong farm here that says, no, these are not just animals that we're selling for meat. These are actually our pets. We've raised some of these for 30 years, and they have a promise for the future that they believe is going to change the world. So they're like, no, we are not giving up this flock, and this policy needs to be taken down. So they have challenged the policy in the federal court of appeals. And what is crazy here is, as you see, they're at a standoff on their property with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, who's hijacked their flock and part of their land. And all of that happened on the tax dollars when the CFIA knew the farmers were going to try to take this fight to Supreme Court. So they risk this whole standstill that we're paying for shouldn't even be happening, because the stay that they knew was possible happened when they came to the grounds. It's really shocking.
Omar Sheikh,
yes.
Is he on this case still? I know he does a lot of great work.
He doesn't stop. He got that miraculous stay order, which was literally in the nick of time, it seemed. Like they could have culled these birds maybe that day, the next day. And so he got that stay order. And then, of course, there's all these submissions. And the next, what's being weighed right now is whether or not the farm will be granted leave, which will pause the call longer. I assume it means they will leave, because it would be ridiculous for us to pay for them to still be here. And that will allow them to prepare for a hearing in Supreme Court. First of all, there's not really anything like this before, but normally when you're waiting to see if you can get a leave for something, it could take 1 to 3 months. It could take a long time. But obviously everything is expedited right now because of the resources, because that the police are here instead of cracking down on drug crimes and all of our crime going up. They're acting like the farmers and the supporters are criminals. And of course, the CFIA is here.
As you can see behind me, this is where supporters are camping out. Some of them for days, some of them for hours, some of them for weeks and months. There are people here who are 100% dedicated to standing by with the farmers here at the ostrich farm to support them for anything that comes up. It's a bunch of people that have set up in their cars, a lot of them, but most of them sleeping here. There's a food set up.
Yeah.
People are being fed. It's turned into a little town. How did this happen? What is this? How did these people get here? What are they doing here?
Yeah, so we're at 301 Landjail Road, and the farmers, since the beginning of their fight with the CFIA, have been saying, come here. Come see the ostriches. That was their big thing. They wanted people to look the ostriches in the eye, which is slightly harder to do now that the CFIA is here. And they wanted people to see for themselves that these birds are not sick. So you've had people come here for the whole 9 months. You've had people stay for a week, a month at a time, and you've had many people come here for a couple days and go, and some people come for just a day. So I don't know the number of people that have come here. I also know that there is a huge reach online. There are people internationally in Holland, in China, and of course in the United States that are going, wait, Canada has ostriches? And they're killing them for no reason. And they're very invested in this story, too.
Thank you to you, just as an outside observer, for your reporting here on the ground consistently, more thoroughly than any other journalist from any of the mainstream outlets. And if we want to stay tuned or help out, where do we go?
Well, savetheostriches.com is where you can go to donate for our coverage. Sid saw my little ostrich mobile that's here, which, you know, keeps me on the ground, but is also just the same as a cheap motel. Rebel News has been committed to be here on the ground. You've come to help. Thank you so much. I know Sheila's coming. Ezra was here. You know, at some point, I'm so invested in the story that I don't want to go home. But if I have to, somebody else will be here to make sure that we're here for you. One thing we are doing is sorting through facts and fiction. I love that everybody is here with a phone, but you'll notice that sometimes they beat me because I have to go verify what people think is accurate, and a lot of times what's going out immediately isn't. So that's something Rebel News is for sure bringing you, is to make sure that you're knowing what exactly is happening at the right time. And then we are breaking some news right away too. So savetheostriches.com. And also I always link, you know, the GoFundMe to help the farm itself too with their legal expenses.
Let me know in the comments, what do you think needs to be done to save these ostriches? For Rebel News, I'm Sydney Fizzard. SaveTheOstriches.com is where you have to go if you want to see all of our coverage. We want to put in the effort to be there to cover these stories that matter. And we're able to do that thanks to your support at SaveTheOstriches.com.